Hello again. When you are working with your Pandas data frame and you have a need to shift your data either row-wise, upwards or downwards, or column-wise, either towards your left or towards your right, the Pandas shift function is very useful. In this tutorial, we are going to use how you can use Pandas shift function with your data frame, as well as how to make it even much more useful when you are processing a time series data within your Pandas data frame. Finally, we have used a real-world example to apply the GroupBy and the transpose method to generate rolling values by combining GroupBy, transpose, and Pandas shift function. I do believe that the information you are going to see in this tutorial is going to enhance your knowledge related with Pandas shift library. So without further delay, let's get started. First thing first, the code used in this demo will be accessible through this public code repo, which is available at the GitHub. The Jupyter Notebook code is available in this Magic of Shift folder within the Pandas folder, where all the Pandas related Jupyter notebooks are available. Please get this Magic of Shift in Pandas Jupyter notebook to follow up the code in this tutorial. If you are interested to learn more about Pandas shift from the documentation, please follow this URL. Here you can see that the Jupyter is running and this magic of shift in Pandas Jupyter notebook is already open here. We are going to import the Pandas here. I'll be using a very common example related with Titanic dataset to learn shift in Pandas. So we already have this remote URL. We will be importing this dataset into the data frame, and here is our data frame. What is shift here? Shift can be used with the data frame in two different ways. One, you are trying to move a column from either its own location to its right or its own location to its left. Same thing, you might need to do the shifting at the row level or vertical shift. It means that a new empty row can be added and the rows can be shifted bottom or the rows can be shifted above. And all that shifting is happening in a way that neither a new row or the new columns are created. Shifting is happening within the existing data frame. It will not be adding any new row or any new columns when it's trying to shift. Empty row or empty columns will be created as needed. However, some of the rows where the shifting happen at either horizontal level or vertical level, they will be overwritten and they may not longer be existed. I do have this IPython library imported only because I wanted to show you few images so that you could understand shifting in much better way. So we already have this data frame available in our memory. So here you could see the vertical shift means this whole data frame is moved, shifted one vertically, and a new row is created. And you have lost the row number 4 here. The shift could happen upward or could be downward. Same thing, if I could open this image, here you could see that shift is happening horizontally, left to right or right to left. But in this example, here you could see that we are shifting this column from this location to this location, and this shift is causing the column B is overwritten by the values from the shifted column A, and a new column A is created. So it's not a cyclic shift where everything is shuffling in a circular motion. We are using the data frame, and data frame we are shifting using the keyword periods equal 1. And as you could see here, that very quickly this shift happened, and because it is a vertical shift and default is axis 0, and as you could see here that a new row is created and the record number 1, which was Mr. Owen Harris Brand, is shifted to row number 1, and then the last row, Mr. Patrick Dooley, is gone. So number of rows is still there, number of rows are still there, and a new row is created and the very last row is removed. That's you could see here. One thing you also need to understand that the original data frame is still intact here. It's still there. It means that when the shift happened, it generated results in a way that if you would want to persist this information, you can store this information in a new data frame object. So here you have seen the period. So this is called the shifting through periods, means you are moving rows. Next. Here you could see that we are using a positive number. So just for example, let's use shift 2. As you could see here, 2 new rows are created and bottom 2 rows are gone. So this is the original data frame. If you will use period 20, and you could see that top 20 rows will be shifted downwards, and that's where your last 20 rows are removed. So you can see here, this is how this shift happened. We could have done shift 1000, which is higher number of rows than the available rows here. And if we run here, as you could see here, everything is became shifted. So all 1000 rows are added. However, there is only 891 rows. And as you could see here, everything became 0. We are seeing this vertical shift downwards using periods. And if we want to go upward, we could use df shift negative. As you could use negative, as you could see here, a last row is added at the very bottom, and very first row is removed, and shift happened upwards. If you would say -10, it is very similar to positive period value. If you will say 1000, it is happening same thing. If you will use 500, as you could see from bottom, it is really happening. If there is 891 rows, if you will use shift 890, as you could see here, everything from bottom is shifted, only very last value, which is Mr. Patrick Dooley, is only available. So those are the shift using periods, negative and positive value, you could shift it. After the shift, you might see that most of these values in the new rows are added as NaN. With the shift, you could just use keyword fill value and it fills whatever you would want here. So here you could see we are filling value 0. So all the shift, it's shifting 1 downwards and adding everything as a 0 here. If you would want to fill 99, you could see that everything is filled like 99 here. If the columns are numeric, the numeric value will be added. However, if the columns are non-numeric, then those value will become the most of the time the string values here. So anything you could fill here. If you try to fill AA, you are filling a string value. That is really going to add AA to the all values in the columns. However, if you would try to check this data frame, as you could see here, that in this data frame, most of these columns are reported very differently now, because they all became object here. The numeric part is no longer available, because if you will try to make value 9, as you could see here, the integrity of these columns is still numeric here. However, because of you added the column, the filler value is a string, the whole data frame has changed here. So you have to understand, filling the value will cause a major shift in overall data frame structure. Be very careful with that. Fill value will work in any direction. So here you could see that I'm using -100 and shift is going from bottom to top. So shift you have understood with periods, upwards, downwards with different direction, and using fill value. here is just one more example that if you would want to fill everything with 0 and you are just shifting everything. Okay. Once you have understood filling with periods, that is row wise, next we are going to do the column wise shifting, which we called horizontally using the axis here. So initial the default axis was 0. Now we are trying to shift with axis here. So here you could say that we are just using the df shift 1 and axis 1. So before we go, let's reload our data frame. This is the original data frame we have, and we are going to shift here just one column to its right, and axis is 1 here. That's very important if you want to do the column shift. As you could see here, this passenger ID has NAN and everything is shifted one column. So passenger ID became the survived column and survived column became the P class column. And as you could see here, that P class column, most of these value became 9 here, and the name became the sex. And if you see here that age, so the age was numeric column here. And when you move male value to the age became NAN. It means that numeric column cannot have the object or string value. And the second last column, cabin, is became the embarked column. The value of cabin became the embarked column, and the values of the embarked column is gone. So that you have seen shift. If I would have used shift 5, as you could see in this scenario, that shift 5 really caused shift, and then because of these value type, they all have been overwritten in a way. If you try to do shift 3, you could still see some of the values here. If you do shift 2, as you could see here, that your data frame shift is shifting in a way, so 2 column, because this data frame is a combination of numeric, float, as well as string columns. Is a very good example for us to understand shift much better way. And just to make sure that your original data frame has not been changed, it still is same. The only thing is happening is that all these shift operations are applying to the existing data frame, and if you need result, just offload them into a new data frame. And if you would want to move the left side, make sure the axis must be 1 and the values could be negative. And as soon as you will use negative, you can see here that embarked value became the cabin value, and the survived value became the passenger ID value, and passenger ID value has taken the survived value. So that's, as you could see here, the name value has been, the sex values became the name, and name values became the P class values. As you could see here, the P class value, the values which are coming from here, they are being replaced. So shifting using horizontally, vertical, using periods and axis 0 and axis 1 should have give you idea how you could do upwards, downwards, leftward, rightwards shifting with your existing data frame. Next, we can look into shifting with frequency. And when we talk about frequency, it's really very important aspect of shifting with the time series data. It means you have a data frame which has the column using the datetime data type, and that column must be indexed. So if you have a time series data frame, it is important that your datetime type column is actually indexed. So I have that example I would be showing you, but before I really go, I'm just using a real COVID cases data set. So I have to process it in a way so that we can convert this data frame to the time series data. So very first, this is a COVID case URL. We are reading this data frame, and then this result is saved into the df COVID data frame. Now, as you could see here, dates are available, dates are column, and depending on which country, the total number of COVID cases are listed here from January 2020 to all the way to here. You could see that January 2022, about 742 column. It means that is about 2 year worth of data related with all these global countries are available here. Next, we are trying to filter this data related with few countries so we could process it little faster and learn more effectively. As you could see here, we have created a data frame selected, which is extracted from the DF COVID, and here you could see that we are just using some of these countries as listed here, and we are still using all the 2 year plus worth of COVID cases data in this example. Next, we are transposing this data frame in a way that date value comes as a very first row value, and then the value of the number of these COVID cases will become the value for each country. So this happening here, and the result of this transpose operation is stored in DF filtered, and as you could see here that these are the date values and these are the number of COVID cases for these 4 countries in this example. This column is not the date time, and as you could see here that this is our data frame. It does not look like an index, so we are very quickly setting the index and taking this index to date time, and as you could see here, now this value is set to be the date time. And to check that thing, we will try to look into our data frame again, and to make sure that we can call it info, and we have column, and that's the value here, and it has the date time index, and it has 708 entries. So now we have this data frame which is indexed on the date type value. It means everything is ready for us. So finally, we are making sure that everything is ready for us in this data frame, and let's try to perform the shifting. So remember, we already have the idea of shifting, that we could use the period, positive and negative, and axis 0 and 1. So here we are using the DF filter shift, and we are just using the frequency equals 1 day. So 1 day. As you could see here, that very first value was the 21st February in 2020. And as you could see here, that data in the indexed value shifted and value became 22nd February 2020. If we want to do 3 days, as you could see here, 21 became 24. So that's the way you could shift your data. Here are a few of the examples, and let's try to do 1 hour. Let's see what happens. As you could see here, that this date which was set initially, let's try to look into this. So you see 21st. Here you could see here that after 1 hour, the 21st became 1. If you try to do 4 hour, that will become 4. Initially it was a 0 0, so now the frequency is changing in your data frame. And if you use the negative time here, as you could see, I did negative 4 hours and the value moved 4 hours back. It works with your day, with your days or month, depending on what you would want to do. Week is not applicable. However, you could do 7 days and that value can be added here. There are so many ways you could experiment where the maximum values are. If you say 3H batch, if you see here that value became original data, so 21st February. Now we need to say 21st February and it will become 22nd February. If we try to say Y, you could see again maximum 1 month. If you see February, it maximum can go to the same month. Please experiment depending on your need, but at least you have got the idea of how this works. If I try to say negative 1 month, if you could see here, it just went back up to that way. So for few days, if you want to try something, that's really very useful, and that's how I would ask you to learn that how the shifting really helps us. This is our data frame and we want to understand how the daily changes happens in the Germany. So Germany is our country, and here are the daily values. And here you could see that we are using shifting to generate this daily changes. We have added a new column called daily changes in Germany, and we are subtracting the value from DF filter Germany. So this value and 1 day shift in Germany, as you could see here, and we are taking that value and we are subtracting it. Everything happens in this data frame in memory. So Germany has the values, and as you could see here, initially everything is 0. Here you could see that this result is between this and previous value, but this result is between this and this. So 117131 minus 116967 is 216. If this value is 182, that value is really coming out from here, 670 minus 488. So 670, 488, and that is value is coming out here. So this is how you could use the shift operation to generate new value added columns. Here I'm using USA and Italy, and as you could see here, that changes happening in USA and Italy. But what if you would want to use this shift method for 7 days? Here you could see the weekly changes in US. So we are looking into the weekly changes, and if you will try to process it, you will be able to get the values based on 7 days. So these are the weekly changes in US. Here you could see that we are using daily changes in US. You could see here that we are using shift and we are using frequency. So depending on what your needs are, you have ability to use these ways to change your data frame and process it in memory. Next, we will be using a real world example to understand shifting in even much granular detail. So here you could see that I have a data frame, which is the data frame new. This is the grouped value data frame. So here you see that I have 3 groups, 1, 2, 3, and I have these values for each one. So if we are trying to shift values here in the row, we want to have the consistency based on groups here, because the value between these first 3 rows are related with 1, 2, 3, next 3 rows and next 3 rows. So they are very different than what we have seen previously. So if you have the group data frame, means it has rows related with grouped item, how you could do the shifting. And that is what the objective of this example. So as you could see here, we are sorting these values based on groups. This is our frame 111, 222, 333, and that is what you have got it. So you could see that this is a 1 value, 2 values and 3 values. So we have sorted them and we have reset the index for this df new, and in place means set the index at the local level. So data frame new updated locally and a new data frame is created which has the index. So based on the sorted value we had, these sorted value are having the index now. So now you could see that based on 111, 0 to 2, 333, 225, and then 222 is 6 to 8. So these 3 values are there. Now what we want to do is that we want to create a new shifted column which is based on group type. So 1, 2, 3 are the group as index. We are not using this as an index, and we are trying to transform and we are shifting for the past value. So I have ran this thing, and now let's see what happened in the shift column. So you see here that we are shifting the column, and what we are trying to do is that we are trying to shift this column in a way which really generate the values from group based data. So you see here we are shifting 1, so it's a positive 1, and we are not changing axis. It means it's a row by shift. So you see 20 here, 60 is here, and 30 became nan because it's not really there. So because 30 doesn't 50 does not belong to 1, so it has to become nan. So 20, 60, here you could see 50, 15, but it's again. So that's how you could understand that how the shifting could be achieved if you have the column which is having the grouping information related with all the rows. Now we want to generate the average of the values available in this value column, but the average must be done based on grouped value. So we are creating the final rolling average here. In this scenario, what we are trying to do is that we are adding a new column called final rolling average. And in this scenario, we are creating average here. So here you could see 20, average 20. Then next you are seeing that 60 plus 20 is 80. And what is the average? 40. Next is again, here you could see that 50 has the average 50, one value. And here you could see 50 plus 15, which is 65. The two values, the average of 65 is 32.5. Next is n, 30 is 30 average, 30 plus 25 is 55, and the average of these two values are 27.5. This is how we could generate the rolling average of these values, but again, they are shifted values. Next, we are trying to generate the rolling value average. So this was the average was happening on these values. As you could see here, that what we are doing is 20, 20, 60 plus 20, 40, and then n, 50, 50, 50 plus 15, 32.5. So this was the average on a shifted column. And if you would want to do the rolling value average, which is on the value column, here you could see here, it is still 20 is 20, 20 plus 60, 80 divided by 2 is 40. And then 80 plus 30 is 110, 110 divided by 3 is 36. Next is a 50, 51 value 1, 50 plus 15, 65, 32.5, 65 plus 25, 90, 90 divided by 3 is 30. So using the combination of transform and GroupBy, you could apply the shift method within your data frame and you could actually process them. So here we are just calculating the average. And here you could see that this is the mean, which is again the average. So this is how you could apply shift method available in Pandas to not only shift your rows and column, but also process the values within the newly generated column. Here we are at the last to recap what we have learned. You have seen how Pandas shift function can be very useful for you to shift your rows and columns upwards, downwards, or left or rightwise. We have also seen a real-world example to generate the rolling updates from your group-wise data frame. We have also seen the combination of transpose, GroupBy with Pandas shift operation. Besides this, we have also understood how the shift operation could be used in order to process your data frame. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial and I will be seeing you in my next tutorial. That's all, my friends. If you have enjoyed our content, please like it, share it, subscribe it. And finally, please remember, be good and do good. Thank you.